If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and so many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started and have fun.
I'm so excited and I just can't fight it. I'm about to puff, pass, and I like it.
Welcome to the podcast. On this week's episode, we have James Annitto. James is a demonologist, a deacon, and a neato guy. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Should we count down together? This could be the first time we've counted down together.
All right, let's do it.
All right, on the count of three. Three,
Three, two,
two, one.
one.
Interview with Jay Annitto, demonologist, deacon, and a damn good fellow. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a interesting podcast, and I'm excited to be on.
I'm excited to have you here. So, demons. Some people, most might even, doubt the existence of the devil. So some people worship the devil. So the church teaches us that demons exist.
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion of Satan and his legion?
That's a very interesting question, very in-depth. So I have to answer this very shortly, because if not, I could expound upon it. It's interesting to say a lot of the church actually does not believe in demons, depending on what Christian branch you're from. Some, negate away from it more than others, and some are very influenced in the symbology, of course, sinning and acquiring a demon. This goes all the way back since early times, like Mesopotamian times, Babylonian times, where they had demons or these gods of like pestilence, like Pazuzu, perfect example, where Zozo was derivative of, which is a cultural phenomenon nowadays. And Pazuzu was actually the demon interpreted in The Exorcist. He was the god of pestilence. So anytime that back in those days that they had bad fathoms and loss of a lot of lives and goods and materials, it was the god Pazuzu shunning them. So it's interesting to see demons advance throughout history. But one of the important things that I always try to tend to look at is statistics, because they truly barely ever lie, because it is created from mathematics. And, I'm not very good at mathematics myself, but with percentages, there's 100% to 50%. It's a commonality that you can look at. 44% of people in America believe in ghosts. That's a lot of people, 44%. So if you believe in ghosts, why not believe in demons? And if you believe in God, why can't you believe in ghosts or demons? So they're all in some way in a synergy and a pattern. There are different beings out there, entities, just like there are different people out there as well, different races and different ethnicities and different languages, different ways to approach somebody, different ethics, morals. So in the same way, this could happen in the spiritual world as well.
That is super interesting. Like, I've honestly never thought of that before. I've heard of Pazuzu and Zuzu and everything, but I know nothing about demonology. So how did you get involved with demonology?
Well, I think a lot of my colleagues have some sort of ability or dealt with some sort of haunted house that they lived in, something that was a catalyst for them to kind of want to jump towards the ghosts. Maybe, of course, they grew up watching certain things like Leonard Nimoy, In Search of, or, in the early 80s, 90s, Unsolved Mysteries, like a lot of shows that created the interest Even Houdini was known to try to slander psychics and mediums, and many other notable figures. So, of course, I think this shapes people's interests. But in reality, why I got involved in demonology and the paranormal field itself was because of a traumatic experience that I had as a child. I talk about it more often now because I've healed from it. But I was left on the side of the street basically by my own father, and I've forgiven him because that's the best thing you can do is forgive people. But I was left, and I grew up hearing the story, and the people that adopted me, my grandparents, were Lutheran, and they would go to church every Sunday. So of course I'm hearing how God is good and omnipresent, omnipotent, and benevolent. Of course, he does judge and condemn if you do bad, which is clearly shown in the Old Testament and many other different books of belief systems. But as long as you do good, and good is spread upon, and that could be something that can be seen without believing in God too. You do good deeds, usually it's a domino effect. There is a good repercussion from it. And if you do bad, usually the bad people always some of course a small percent will strive and never get caught, but most of them will go to jail or die. So there's bad ramifications. So it's in that sense, like, I questioned God as a child. I thought it was laughable. I was agnostic, atheist, if you want to call it that. I was very influenced by Darwinism. I love the idea and the theory of evolution. I think it's possible in a micro sense, micro evolution. But it intrigued me, and I thought I wanted to disprove God or prove God. And as a young child, I started grasping onto books. Of course, watching some of the shows that predate a lot of the paranormal shows that we have nowadays, even Ghost Hunters. But I live in Rhode Island now. I lived in Rhode Island since I was adopted, and Ghost Hunters originated from it. But really, to simplify and not go too much on a tangent, is that demonology and paranormal came from a physical traumatic experience. And the paranormal subject breached to the opinion, if I could understand ghosts, demons, angels, if like I could think that is a possibility that this exists, then if ghosts exist, there has to be a possibility that God exists. And then of course within my searches, I do believe God exists. I've had my own personal situations without being under the influence, without even being in a certain mindset or wanting or hoping that this could occur. But I've had these experiences that have been life-changing and made my faith stronger. And it's a total 180 of who I was as a child and as a young adult as well. So it's very eye-opening.
So have you ever witnessed a possession or a demonic presence in person?
Unfortunately, I have. Very rare, in my opinion, of course, and of course through many other people's opinions. I know some people come across them more often than so, but I think that's the methodology and ideology or opinions of theories that you believe in. And demonology is so expanse. Demonology comes from angelology, which is the study of angels, which angelology comes from theology, which is the study of God and religion. And of course, theology is branched into hamartology, which is the study of sin, Christology, which is the study of Christ, and so on and so on. So there's a lot to it. And I think people look at it in a more biased opinion than others. I'm very nowadays analytical. I try to process every little detail. I've reviewed my cases from 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 8 years ago, on my new perspective and what I've come across, what science has come to know to be empirical, that, that can't be debated because it's been done in a lab over and over through a rigorous amount of times without change. So, things have changed. We understand psychology and stuff like that. But so I think people come at a different perspective sometimes. But in my time of doing this, which is going on, and I think this is my 16th year now, is that I've come across probably 5 cases that I would call demonic. 7, if I really wanted to throw 2 in there, that I think still needs a little bit of better understanding, and those were years ago. But yeah, 5 cases in 16 years is a very low number. I think some people think it's a daily, especially being in demonology and the study of it. A lot of people think it's a daily basis, but out of those 5 cases, 3 of those cases were individuals that I would believe that would be under demonic possession. And these 3 individuals were have gone under a psychological evaluation by not one individual, but multiple individuals in a few of those cases. So those were very interesting and very scary, indeed, but it made my faith stronger. It made me realize these things do exist beyond the human psyche.
That's so interesting. So, how do you feel that exorcisms have evolved over the course of time?
They're still very archaic. They have especially the Catholicism ritual. They, I believe, changed it in 1999. Don't quote me on the date. It's relatively around that time frame. But they had used beside maybe a change in prayers, updates in catechism, and all these other little updates in canon and stuff like that throughout time to become more oriented to the generations we are in now. But usually the ritual did not change since basically the conception of it in Catholicism. But in Judaism, they have a form of exorcism. Hinduism, which is the oldest modern day religion by 4,400 years old, has exorcism ritual with the Ferber dagger, the Phoeba, I think. I forget the the Kila, but it's a lot of people call it Ferber. And it was a dagger used to draw out an evil spirit from an individual. So exorcisms in a method have in a ritual have been around for a very long time, since some of the youngest religions that branch from animism as well. A lot of Japanese and Hinduism being from Asia mainly, but even Shintoism, a lot of those Eastern cultures have heavy roots in it, which a lot of our Western culture was built upon. So it's interesting to see that they haven't changed much. They're still archaic in some form. Like in the 1999 ritual through the Romanus Ritualis, it is less tenacious. And what I mean by tenacious is that, there's less provocation to it, like a lot less of a pump your chest out kind of stance because of the dangers and the psychological ramifications that could occur with the parties at hand, where they simmered down the way that you approach the case. Like a lot of the semantics are the same, but a lot of the wording in the ritual has been changed around a little bit due to the dangers of provoking an entity where, deaths and injuries have happened and been documented by many individuals throughout many different times. And even Hippocrates, the father of medicine, performed exorcisms on individuals as a form of psychotherapy. So even the father of medicine did it and realized there was success in it in a psychological sense too. So it's been around for a while.
So, is there an ebb and flow with demonic activity, or would you say that maybe any patterns exist?
Yeah, the patterns exist that usually the demon that is in a case is usually prevalent because of somebody that is being affected has a very bad trauma in their life. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of how a demonic case evolves is the individual feeding into it. Usually, of course, the infestation stage starts as a target for anybody, really. One person maybe did draw it out, or it was called upon by somebody that wished ill will on somebody, and through enough laws of attraction and provocation through thin air, it might have caused a ripple where something occurred. These are theories. It's not fact, but so the ripple effect is that usually there's a trauma involved with an individual. I would say 90% of the time is that the person really dealing with a demonic case won't call me and say they're dealing with a demon. They won't self-diagnose. An individual really truly going through it won't be able to self-diagnose because it's how they're being molested by this entity is very parasitical. It hits when it needs to, but at times it's very quiet or theatrical in a sense where it lets your guard down. Because that's where the invitation comes into place when you start communicating with it and acting like it's your best friend. That's when, of course, it gets worse. And of course, if an individual is being oppressed, and they are the main target of this entity because they are an individual with the most trauma or the reasoning of why this is there, and it has finally demoralized them enough to allow this oppression to occur. Once the person that is oppressed gives up mentally, and they don't have to believe they're being possessed because most of the time, like I said, true case, they will not know the circumstances they are involved in, and to be very reluctant to actually call for help. Usually it's an outsider that calls for the assistance of somebody that's being truly possessed or oppressed or dealing with infestation. So that's a lot of the common signs that you can look at. A lot of people as a demonologist, ask me how to summon demons. I get emails out the wazoo every day about, I have a demon in my house. And usually, I still, of course, talk to these individuals to give them some ease of mind. And some people have already what's the common cause of it. And, I'm wrong, even though they're calling me or asking for my assistance. But most of the time, if they're self-diagnosing, unfortunately, it doesn't mean that they're not dealing with something, but right out of the gate, it's probably not demonic. So those are the commonalities. But other than that, like there's so much dissecting that has to be done because you never want to jump to the supernatural, the preternatural, the paranormal, whatever terminology wants to be used when you're looking at it. You always want to check off the natural boxes first because a lot of people even myself doesn't understand the full extent of the human body, the human mind, and the human mind is a very powerful tool. One of even we think we're self-important, but the human mind is one of the greatest creations that exist that we know of, and how the way its capabilities occur and the way we're able to process information. So it's possible of many things, and you have to always check that off before you say it's a demon or if it's a ghost or it's a spirit, because a lot of the times what we deal with is what we want. It's a projection of us haunting ourselves or us relating to the emotions of a place, because a lot of people that deal with it, they're the batteries, the activators to this haunting, and there's always a human element to it.
So what would you say that the stages of possession are?
Well, so how I would determine the stages is very easy, so it doesn't overcomplicate people's way to dissect. Is that a demonic haunting would go from infestation, oppression. There's also a stage called obsession, but then it would go to possession, which is branched off into two different categories itself as well. Transient possession, which means the entity comes and goes because the person's free will is still able to come back and take over themselves from this kind of invading entity. That's why it would be transient, because it comes and goes and with its ways as well. But usually it's because of the battle between within and somebody's faith that creates that transient effect of coming and going. And then the other stage would be, which is much rarer than transient possession, would be perfect possession or true possession. which is when somebody has fully demoralized, their free will has been fully broken. They're basically a vegetable, psychologically, mentally, and the entity has full gain of the host, and the thoughts are of the demons, not the persons, and the person has lost all ability. And in that time, though, there's a crazy thing that happens with the human body, and the abrasive nature of getting rid of somebody's soul from a body is that when, as long as the a demon controls the body in perfect possession, the body tends to degrade very fast, and usually they degrade, because a demon might not want the human body to eat, so they start having malnutrition, the human body, and it starts becoming decrepit, and usually cancer will generate. So even this could happen with possession, because there's something that, look at what stress and anxiety does to people. So just think of this invasive entity, this invasive thing that's not supposed to be within you, entangled within you, being a part of your life, and the situations that occurs to your body physically and mentally. So it's very interesting.
So what would you say that the telltale signs of demonic presence are?
That's so I always say, I say it in a joking manner, I'm the biggest tool.
I thought you were gonna say, when in doubt, sniff it out.
When in doubt, sniff it out. But I'm the biggest tool in the shed. So but no, seriously, the human perception can be the greatest asset and the worst asset, but you have to understand and realize what it could be before you jump to it, as I stated before. So the best tell sign of understanding without really dissecting a case would be the feeling that the body and the mind gets, regardless of your belief of being clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, psychic, medium, whatever terminology there is to describe somebody with sensitivity, or an enhanced ability of sixth sense, is that anybody that is dealing with a demonic case would feel the change in the barometric pressure, the atmosphere within themselves. It's an unwavering feeling. And any case that I've been on that was truly demonic, this was a key occurrence within myself, and every other individual felt different. Is that there is a psychological reaction that occurs in our body called fight, fright, or flight. And anytime I've dealt with these cases, that was a mechanic that went off in my brain. Of course, I'm too dumb to run. So that actually rhymes. Too dumb to run. But so what's it called? But seriously though, like I'm there for a reason. As much as this is like very, very, very strong, and you feel it within the confines of your body, within your bones. That's how you feel it. You're saying your body and your mind's telling you get the hell out of there. And there is a sense of like, oh, what if the fright, like what could be around the corner. And then of course there's the fight, which is my mentality. I understand anything can happen because I am a human, and I am invocating positivity and what I would believe in God to exist. Fourth, beyond that, I am just the catalyst, the tool, and I am used. I change the person's perspective. I try to embrace them in a positive manner. That is my nature, but it is to give them that reinforcement is what I am a part of the equation. So, but yeah, I would say that's the biggest telltale sign. If your body just tells you get the hell out of that house, like, and something's not right, then I wouldn't always jump to the conclusion it's demonic without, of course, dissecting it more. But usually that's a huge telltale sign that you're dealing with something that is much older than you, and has been around a long time.
I know the feeling. I get it every time I have a bowel movement. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just fucking around. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was a time, seriously, like, and I know people say, oh, he's a deacon. I was also in the army. I also worked in construction, so I have a potty mouth. There has been a time in one of the cases I come close to shitting myself because seriously, like, your body reacts. Your mind and body can react differently, and that's why a lot of people don't, when using ideomotor responses with Ouija boards, even though you didn't realize you moved the planchette because you
Yeah.
realize something different, it happens. So it's in the same sense, like, you could be all mentally in the game, but your body is trembling and you shit yourself. Like, I've come to the close of having, like, legit runny shits on my leg.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that would have been awful. Like, as much as it would have stinked and made me look maybe unprofessional to the client that I was dealing with. But sometimes you can't help Mother Nature. And when people that are possessed, when an exorcism has maybe worked or deliverance has worked, and there's a separation between the spirit or the entity and the human body, and the person regains their consciousness, usually there is some sort of exhalement, defecation that occurs. They will poop themselves, they will vomit, they maybe will piss themselves. Something will usually occur if something truly did occur, because that is basically the body releasing the toxins. You see it when you drink too much alcohol, or for people that abuse drugs beyond, of course, because pot's not a drug. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
But you abuse, like, these very heavy drugs, and you do too much of it. Usually, you release the toxins by vomiting or pooping or some other way of getting rid of that from your body. And it's the same sense, in the same case.
So, how do demons manifest themselves?
Through people's fears. They are non-corporeal. They are pure spirit beings. This is misconcepted by so many people. They think that these things have wings and these are these horned creatures. That's all Hollywood and literature and media sense of symbology to replicate what it is to the humans. So, because it's simplicity for many people. But they're non-corporeal. They have no physical body, and this is something documented truly throughout demonology, throughout many different faiths, from beyond Christianity. So, for them to coexist and manifest, they do have an ability. They have been around for a long time. If you believe in the Christian sense, they fell from the graces of God, and they are the fallen. And the Satan and Lucifer lead the charge with that hierarchy of the league of hell, and the demons beyond under them. If you believe that, it's great. But a lot of sense, in the same way a haunting occurs, it's the catalyst, the batteries needed. Fear is a big one, or invitation and communication. The more that you feed into something, it's like you see, like, what do they say? If you see a bear, run, or just, like, fall to the ground and pretend you're dead, right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna create a reaction to the action. You're gonna just, like, dude, I'm gonna just chill, and I'm not gonna try to get the fuck eaten by this bear right now.
Right.
And it's in that same sense. You don't give it a reaction. A demon only, and even maybe a poltergeist or a spirit, will only continue domino affecting and getting worse. It might get worse in some sense because you're ignoring it at first, and it will be temperamental. But when you create a reaction to its action, that's when it gets worse. That's when it's able to receive more energy, or more whatever it feeds off of, whatever it allows it to create more physical action within the environment or within an individual to manipulate them. But one of the biggest things that we see is that the more you feed into it, is the worse it gets. The levels of it, like in poltergeist, they have levels 1 through 5. Demons, they have, of course, I already went over that. And even in spirits, if you allow yourself to open up and channel, which is a thing, you can have a spirit talk through you, or receive some of its thoughts. So it's possible in every form. With this clothes on, sorry. But so in some nature, it's they all feed off of something, and for demons, it's fear. That's what they want. They want that invitation. They want you to be scared. They don't want you to believe in God. They don't want you to have any positive reinforcement. They start breaking you down, start depriving you of your friendships, your family, and for a lot of people that's important with music. You start to degrade from music, maybe listen to more dark centric things about killing people, if you were more of a positive individual. And I listen to all different kinds of music beside country. I think it's trash, my opinion, perspective. But but I listen to all kinds of music. But people that would listen to very poppy, positive music, maybe Christian music or hymns or gospel music, would start to listen to like mayhem and other satanistic, rebellious nature ideologies. Which, of course, I have friends that are Satanists, and Carl, my partner with Duo Demonology, was a former Satanist. That doesn't make them a bad person. It just makes them that they're rebellious in nature. Some do dabble in very crazy shit, which I don't understand, which is beyond me. But they're not always all bad people. But
right.
When you start 180ing from who you are to being a smoker, a drinker, or doing meth or cocaine or any of those crazy drugs, that you start doing that stuff where there was nothing that was an occurrence in your life. You do good in your job, you didn't go through anything bad in your relationship. Maybe the trauma of your past is haunting you, which is the enabler for this to continue. But there's always a piece. There's always something that makes this allurement, this lure for these demons to keep getting stronger.
Right. So being involved with something so dark, it's got to be dangerous. Like it seems incredibly terrifying. How do you keep you and your family safe?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I have a little one. He's going to be 5 in November. He's my love in my life, and of course, I have a significant other who's a pain in my butt. She's probably listening right now. She'll probably beat me up after this, but I still love her, and I think what's important is that I learned this a long time ago. Dealing with this stuff is, ego is bad when it's negative ego. There is a positive ego and self-confidence that's not abrasive or narcissistic. You can believe in yourself, and maybe I believed in myself too much in a different way where I thought I was untouchable. I'm not scared of nobody. I'm only scared of letting myself down and others in some form, but I'm scared of nobody. But I was also, there's a difference between being scared of nobody and feeling you're untouchable. And I definitely got kind of a bite from a case. I kind of got a receive a piece of humble pie. And that was a realization to me that you always have to, I have vices like anybody. I have many virtues that I kind of promote in life, but I do have my vices. But you have to understand and swallow that pill, that you understand that I'm not perfect. I might do good, but there are things that I do bad that I wish I could change. And there, you have to have that realization. But it's also important too is a faith. It doesn't have to be faith in God. So I'm not trying to be the preachy type, because I really do despise those people. I think that you should teach the fundamentals, but allow people to believe in what they want. And if they're pieces of shit people, then you can't change that in some people. That's just their wiring within their confines of their brain. So you sometimes can't change that within people. There are psychos. There's people with psychosis issues. This is truly documented, and these people are just like that through some sort of wiring that happened prenatally or after their birth. So it's there's so many pieces to it, and it's crazy to understand the pathology of it. And I'm going too much off on a tangent, but it's just crazy what's possible, and what we go through and the experiences. For people, demons are laughable. and people want to experience it to believe it. Now understanding it and dealing with it myself, I kind of laugh at that, like, of people's want to deal with it. Because when you see people fall apart, it's not exciting. And some people maybe will gloat off that and love it and
Right.
kind of want to see somebody being tormented. But if you're doing it for the right reason, that's not what you want to see. But I tell a lot of people it's not something you want to see. It definitely changes your life. If you don't change your lifestyle and you deal with it, the ramifications, repercussions that could occur could be very, very huge in your life. It could rip your family apart. Back to your original question, it could affect you. And I always think of that. I have agape, which is the true love of God in my heart. I don't blame God for anything anymore. I blame myself before I blame anybody else or blame God. People do stupid shit, and some people can't swallow their own pill, that they make their own mistakes and they blame other people or they blame God. I don't do that, and that's important. I don't go to a scapegoat. I go to myself. I fix myself. Yes, I might be affected, but if something comes on my doorstep and affects my family, trust me. I don't say this to be egotistical, but trust me, I will do everything in my power to make sure my family is right and I'm right. And I will do anything in my power. And I'm not challenging, but I'm saying is that I'm not impenetrable. My castle can be scaled, and I can deal with it. But I'm not scared of it either. It's knowing that it could be a possibility, but I don't linger on it, because that lingering is like a lure on a fish pool. You want it to come to you. I don't think about that stuff. I think of love and I think of good, and I do my best to reciprocate that in life.
I feel that. So earlier you talked about your piece on Ouija boards, but do you want to dive a little bit more into your opinion on Ouija boards?
Yeah, they're a tool, very old tool. A lot of people differ on the origin of Ouija boards. Of course, popularized by the spiritualism movement in 1860, I believe, started by the lovely Fox sisters, who, of course, are imposters and of fakery. Enough knowledge now, and they even came out stating so, and were caught. And the birth of spiritualism, if you think about it, was brought upon by fakery. But the Ouija board is slated to be from ancient Egypt, or even ancient Chinese, because both are very systematic in spiritualism. They were both polytheistic belief systems for a very long time. Hinduism, still the third largest religion, is still a polytheistic belief system. Even Christianity and Islamic being monotheistic and being one and two, but Hinduism being three is still a polytheistic belief system. So there's a lot to that puzzle piece as well. But sorry, I totally went on tangent. What was the origin of that question again?
Sorry. What was your opinion on a Ouija board?
Oh yeah. So the Ouija board, which of course factors in what I just said, is, if it was used in spiritualistic communication back in Egyptian Hinduistic times, which has been documented, they did have some sort of board. Early pagans, what we would call wise women or witches, would use in communication for the deceased, would use a witch's board. Pendulums started becoming popular with the pendulum boards, and I think Elijah Bond and a few other people with the Kenner Novelty Company decided to use this board that was very popular in spiritualism, and market it as the Kenner Novelty Company. And then I believe it was one other novelty company. But so yeah, with the Ouija board, in that sense, is that it's a tool, And there is a right way and wrong way to use it. It can be used as a tool for communication, just as like a bottle or any other item can be used, and to be used to communicate to spirit, to try to manipulate what's at hand. The Ouija board has lettering on it, so the idea of it, it could spell a message if you can't hear what they're saying. Can be some of use. But where the dangers of using a Ouija board, just like would be the dangers of using a digital recorder or any other physical item, in essence of communicating with the spirit, is you're talking to with something that you cannot see, is unknown. So it's like going in a dark cave and hoping there's no bears, coyotes, wherever you are, maybe other like hyenas or other animals, and hoping like, oh shit, like I really, really, I hope there's nothing in here. I'm gonna sleep in here, and you never wake up, so you just got eaten alive. It's in that same kind of thought pattern. You play with something or you talk to something, there's always that dangers. And the Ouija board is a more accessible tool, especially if a spirit is intelligent, but not knowing to what a recorder is. Maybe are scared to communicate with certain devices. A Ouija board is more applicable. But I think where the true dangers of where a Ouija board would come in is you're using yourself a part of the process. With the digital recorder, you can place it on the floor and walk out of a room, ask a question, or just leave it there to receive any kind of electronic voice phenomenon. With the Ouija board, your hands are on the planchette, other people's hands are on the planchette, and you become a part of that loop. So that could be a danger too, that you're utilizing yourself a part of the puzzle. And anytime you use yourself physically, it's usually an intent to allow maybe something to channel through you as well. So people would use that argument. Well, other than that, truly, honestly, it is just a cardboard or a piece of wood with letters on it. Most of the time, it is an ideomotor response. People want to believe what they want to believe, and they do write the message out. And even if there's multiple people a part of it, if it's called the shared hallucination, that's a true psychological ailment that we deal with. It is in the DSM-5. But if one person hallucinates and is a part of this reality, the other people can be as well and have that shared experience. You kind of see it in LSD, shrooms, like psychedelics, where people take the same drug, are different bio makeups of who they are, of the DNA, and they still can have a shared experience of the same thing that they're dealing with based upon one's perspective of it. Oh, you see that? You see that, dude? And then they start, yeah, dude, I see it too, man. This is something that exists. So I think it's more of a device that can be explained. But once again, anything can be used as a line of communication.
So when do you know that it's time to seek help? And where should somebody take their concerns if they feel like there's a demonic possession happening?
Well, that's a good question. I think you should do your research. Unfortunately, with paranormal investigators or demonologists, unless sanctioned by the church, or have some credibility within theology, or ordained, have a degree in it, which they would promote. And of course, there could be some ability to research and see the lineage of that as well. Like with my, I'm old Catholic. I'm not really active with the church anymore, but if you look at apostolic succession, that can be proven. I have, the lay of hands. I could easily say what is my lineage, what is my succession from the apostles. So there is that lineage. So there's things that you can prove when you're looking into somebody. There is no licensures. I'm from the trades. I work in the HVAC field, and in our area, there's a sheet metal license. There's refrigeration, there's plumbing licenses, electrical licenses. A lot of people will hire hacks because it's cheaper. But there are people that will hire people of the reputability, that have the licenses, the insurance. They do crafty work. And truly, to be honest, if I want somebody to wire my house, yes, I could do it. but I would want maybe a master electrician's perspective or hand with it. Or, of course, you have to, if you get permits, you have to get inspections. So, there is this lack of within demonology and the paranormal in itself. But usually you could do research on the individual. There's a lineage like me, myself. I work with Carl Johnson of Demonology, who's been doing this for 48 years, who worked with Ed Warren. I've worked with Nesper, which is Ed and Lorraine Warren's group. I've worked with Ralph Sarchi, which you had Sean Austin on, and I've worked with Sean, I've worked with a lineage of people. I come from a basis and a study, so you can look this up. But one thing you should not do, you should never self-diagnose. It's the worst thing you could do. Is like with people going to WebMD and having hysteria of what they are actually dealing with is worse than what is truly what they're dealing with. It's the same thing. Don't self-diagnose. If you think it's something beyond a spirit and you open the line of communication and you are scared, you're having dark thoughts, and you feel something's wrong, reach out to a family friend, reach out to somebody. But the worst thing you can do, and I think this is where people get trapped in, is they become so entrapped in what could be like the WebMD analogy, but they get so trapped into it, try to look for so many different perspectives, and try to understand what they're dealing with. Like, you have to understand, do you want to understand that, or do you want to get rid of it? So you gotta make sure, if you want to overcome the affliction that you're dealing with, you have to be ready to let go and not want to understand the answers. If you want to understand the answers, that means you kind of attach yourself to the entity, the circumstance, the affliction, and there's still traces of wanting it, and that little want will keep it there. So you have to make sure you understand what you want, because sometimes in cases it makes people, instead of making them feel lack of, it makes them feel empowered, especially with people with abilities. The empowerment, their abilities heighten to a degree they've never experienced before. They believe they have the ability of precognition, which is seeing into the future. They gain these visions, they gain these, and sometimes that makes them feel empowered or want. And even though they come out and seek for help, there's still a part of them that don't want it, and that's the biggest occurrence. So you got to make sure you want help. You got to make sure you reach out to the right individuals, the right person that asks the right questions. And if you ever get somebody that has never been to your house or never met you and just heard your story and then jumps to the conclusion that it's a demon, then I would believe that you not listen to them, because to really come to that conclusion of it there being a demon, there are so many protocols and assessments that can and need to be done, should be done, before that's ever concluded. And to be honest, it's hard to come up with a conclusion on something that's not based on fact. Yes, there have been so many experiences, and I think these things do exist, and I don't question that. But it's hard to quantify something or put a stamp of something on something without really understanding the totality of it. It's not fact yet, and we have to understand that.
Right. So any advice for someone who might be interested in studying demonology?
Yeah, I definitely say get into the right reason. It is a calling. There's so many things I could have done in my life. I do what I love in my career. With HVAC, I've done it for so long. I don't despise it. I love it. But you got to make sure it's a passion, it's a love, it's a calling. Yes, I get to have the pleasure of speaking at conventions and doing a podcast like this and having a great time. And one day I believe I will be in the history books, and that's not like a want. It would be great, as in the nature of somebody that has progressed something, not because of myself, but I progressed something, made better awareness of it, better change on it. And you have to have that right cause. You have to understand why you do it, to help people, and not make the popularity of it the first and foremost. If I had a convention where I was going to speak and the only day that I could see a client was that day, I dropped that convention in a heartbeat to go help somebody. You have to have that wavering ability to do so.
Right.
And that's what's important. You can research all the literature, and I believe there's two ways to formulate a demonologist. There's applied demonology, which is applying the study and the literature, and doing this field work, as Sean Austin or myself or Ed Warren or Al Sarchi would do. And there are academic demonologists who would just study the literature, who are theologians, who do not apply it in a physical sense, but they're very well known in the historical aspects of it. So you have to understand what you want to do, but usually it will come forth to you. Like I said, I could have done anything in my life, and I have attempted to escape demonology, escape the paranormal, because it became a hindrance to my life and my relationships and other things. At one point, I always realized there was a pull. I took all my information. I was never a demonologist anymore. I was retired. I laugh about using that word because I'm only 31, but I was retired at like early 20s because I was sick of it, sick of the drama and the tenacious nature of people. But there was a case that came to me that dealt with a family, and I'm like, and nobody was willing to help them. And I do believe they were dealing with something of the paranormal nature, and I came back and did that and drew me back in. There's always something that draws me back in. And, I think you have to have that. You have to understand, and of course you might get into it for the wrong reasons at some point. But, the biggest thing is with being a demonologist and doing the work we gotta do with dealing with people is when you make a mistake, you have to realize that mistake and never make that mistake again as best as you can.
Right.
Because the worst thing you can do is, as a demonologist, is live in a world of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And that's important.
Yeah. It's terrifying, the thought that any if this exists. It's just like crazy because I only think about it like movie wise. So just like I think I'm not willing to accept that it's a real thing because it is so scary. But I mean, like, kudos to you for being such a strong individual, because I don't know what the hell I would do if I saw a demon tripping out in front of me. I would be, I mean, like, I don't even know what I'd do. I'd be like, what am I supposed to do? What do I do? Do I move? If I don't move, doesn't that see me? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, trust me. Even with me, like I never hope. Like yes, I love doing cases. I'm with dual demonology. I'm with PPPRI, PP, PPPRI, which is a Canadian parapsychology group that's also New England chapter. And I work with them, and I love doing cases. I love exploring the possibilities of what could occur and what could exist. But the one thing that I never hope for is a case that is a true demonic case. And to be honest, it's been a few years for me coming across something that I could even title that. Yes, I dealt with some negative cases and people that have dealt with very strong beings with whatever they are, but I could never come up that word demon. It never felt like that. But yeah, it takes some takes some planning, takes some ability. And it's not meant for everybody, and
Right.
for people like yourself that can't believe it because it's too scary, that's a good thing, because to be honest, if you did not believe in ghosts and demons and angels, the possibilities of ever experiencing it are slim to none, because guess what, it was never put into your mind. There's still a possibility it could happen, because anything's possible. Even the word impossible says I'm possible. So it's it, but the rarity of it, the possibility of it, if you don't believe in it to occur, is slim to none. So like the only reason kids know about ghosts or because we set a symbology of it, because of Halloween, because of Casper the Ghost. These kids wouldn't know what a ghost is or a demon or angel is if none of this was explained to them, you know? So we have to remember we kind of are the reasonings that these things occur. So it's interesting to look at that, as well.
Right. So thank you so much for being on our show. Last question. Where can our friends find you?
So I have a few ways and means to contact me. I have jamesannitto.com, which is JamesAnnitto.com. Same, my James Annitto. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram at James Annitto. Also, to find my group with Carl Johnson, two demonologists, called Duo Demonology, and Carl Johnson being the first investigator in the Conjuring House in 1973. You can find our group, Duo Demonology, DuoDemonologie, on Facebook or Instagram or on YouTube. We have a weekly podcast that's not weekly anymore, but we do come out with content every so often, once a month at least. But you can also find us easily. I still don't understand. Carl is always mind blown about it, but you can find us easily, and this is the best way of contact. This is especially for cases. Demonology.org. DEMONOLOGY.org. Easy peasy. Wondergram.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this. It was really an interesting experience. I feel like I learned so much.
Well, thank you for having me on. Puff, puff, pass, girl. And,
Yes.
I'm glad I did not pass on this show. It was a great experience. And I hope you have me on again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. And I will talk to you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon. Have a good night.
You too. Bye. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I know I sure did. Please make sure you follow his Instagram, his other social media, and also tell all your friends. Please, let's all be friends. Rate us, like us, subscribe. Forever yours, XOXO PPP.